Renaissance, bridging theory with everyday practice. One of the most common errors in education is to confuse immediate performance with lasting learning. A pupil follows the example on the board. A trainee copies the process in the meeting. A child seems confident right after being shown. Everyone feels relieved. But what happens tomorrow or next week or when the conditions change? That is the harder test. The research base is blunt on this point. Novices generally do not learn best by being left to discover everything for themselves. Guided instructions, especially when prior knowledge is low, is usually more effective than minimal guidance. Roshan's principles bring that into a form teachers can actually use. Present materials in small steps. Ask many questions. Provide models, support guided practice, and build review into the sequence. Then comes the memory problem. Rereading often feels productive because it creates familiarity, but familiarity is not mastery. Henry L. and Jeffrey D. are prominent cognitive psychologists, best known for their foundational research on retrieval practices. They showed that testing improves long-term retention, not merely assessment, while large review of distributed practice showed that spacing learning episodes improves later recall. Elizabeth and Robert Jork's work on desirable difficulties adds an important warning. Effort can strengthen learning, but only when the level of difficulty is actually productive. If the learner has too little prior knowledge to succeed, the difficulty is no longer desirable. It becomes confusion. So strong practice sits in a narrow and disciplined middle ground. Not comfort, not chaos. Structured effort. That logic applies everywhere. In teaching, it means fewer one-off performances and more repeated practice with fading support. In parenting, it means children should not only watch you tie laces, pack a bag or solve a problem, they should rehearse those actions themselves, return to them later, and be expected to retrieve the steps. In the workplace, it means onboarding should include modeling, rehearsal, delayed recall, and correction instead of one long information dump on day one. The question is always the same. What will still be available when the prompts disappear? Even recent public scientific communication on study and learning has moved in this direction. The striking point is not that tests measure knowledge, it is that self-testing, correctly timed, can improve learning, reveal gaps, and help offset forgetting. So the practical Renaissance position should be very simple. Stop treating smoothness as proof. Real learning is often less glamorous than that. It is a model, a guided attempt, an effort, a correction, another attempt, a delayed retrieval, and a return. That is not low-level work. That is how competence is built. Choose one thing you want someone to learn this week and replace one rereading or watching routine with a 4-step cycle. Model it once, practice it once, retrieve it later without prompts, then revisit it 2 or 3 days later. If it only works while the example is visible, the learning is not finished. Thank you.